everybody. Today is a fabulous day. I would like to welcome Drew Bond. He is the founder and co-founder and president and CEO of the C3 Solutions. And I'm sitting here. He and I had such a fantastic talk last week, and I'm looking at his pedigree here, guys. So buckle up. We got us a great podcast today. And Drew, welcome to the Energy News Beat podcast. Thank you very much.
Well, Stu, thanks for having me. I look forward to our discussion.
Oh, I'll tell you, you tell us a little bit about your pedigree, where you came from, because C3 Solutions is very cool when you're talking ESG, what you think about energy. Tell us a little bit about C3, how you started it, and what are your beliefs on energy? Because I'm sitting here looking at all your data, and it's some good stuff.
Well, thanks. I've got a varied background. I got my start on Capitol Hill working for Senator Don Nickles from Oklahoma. And just a delight, one of the best bosses I ever had. And have done a number of things, including was chief of staff at the Heritage Foundation, conservative think tank in DC, and was chief of staff for Denise Bodie in Oklahoma when she was corporation commissioner. So that's where I cut my teeth on energy and oil and gas and electricity restructuring and all that. Actually, I also have a solar company, which, who knew that went together, right? Heritage and solar. But, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm on my sixth startup. And, with my solar company, for instance, I saw that somebody had created a better widget and just thought, man, that's the coolest thing since sliced bread. Let's go see if we can, build a company. And really the same is true for C3 Solutions. When C3 Solutions first came about, it had been kind of, brewing for a little while because I'd been operating in and out of these policy circles. So one of my other things that I failed to mention that I did was I was a senior advisor for President George W. Bush in the Department of Energy. And there I was working on energy technology commercialization. And so it's the question that we were trying to solve day in and day out for taxpayers was, how do you get inventions that are in the national labs out into the marketplace? And how do you get the marketplace also to, inform our research so that our research that we do in those national labs is relevant? And so you put all those pieces together, and me and a friend, John Hart, were talking one day, and John was a longtime communications director for Tom Coburn,
Wow.
stalwart conservative. John was with him when he was in the House and in the Senate all the way through his career, helped him write a couple of books. And so John and I were talking one day, and we just kind of got a good laugh because he had bought a 62-acre farm in rural Maryland and wanted to put solar on his farm. And here we are, two conservatives both talking about sustainability. And, we thought, look, there's really not that something unique about us in the sense that conservatives care about the environment, right? We just don't talk the language of the environmental left. And we certainly don't subscribe to their policies and positions. We tend to take a more bottom-up approach than a top-down approach. So, we had a thesis that, that was and continues to be that conservatives care about the climate, and we care about the environment. We care about energy security. All of those things are intertwined, and you can care about the climate. I know the climate sometimes makes people's stomach turn, but climate change. You cannot talk about energy without talking about climate change these days. And so think about it in terms of an umbrella term, right? And the reality is, again, like conservatives care about the climate, farmers care about the climate. Farmers were the first environmentalists. And so you shouldn't be any less conservative to think that you can care about climate change. And in fact, if you really think that climate change is the most important issue in the world, and the sky's going to fall tomorrow if we don't do something about it, then you have to innovate fast. And what is equipped to innovate faster than anything else on the planet? It's the private sector, it's entrepreneurs, it's innovation, right? Not the government.
Drew, what I just heard is you think that let's take the fact that we have to get to carbon neutral as soon as possible. That is just a given.
Sure.
But how we get there is such an argument with one side versus the other side. They all get violent and start having a talk. I think you just said energy tech is how we're going to get there the soonest. Is that what I just heard?
Absolutely. I mean, it's energy innovation across the board, all the above. It's oil and gas, it's nuclear, it's renewables, it's hydro, it's you name
Yep.
it, carbon capture and utilization. It is innovation, and so
So
anyway, that
you
that is
also hit on another point. C3 Solutions, it sounds like you are bridging the communication gap between everybody. Did I get that right as well?
well, I hope so. I mean, you probably said it better than I did, but we are.
I don't think so.
Look, C3 Solutions stands for the Conservative Coalition for Climate Solutions. And
Okay.
so we intentionally put conservative and climate and solutions in our name. And we also recognize that you have to work in coalitions, right? You've got to build and
Right.
expand. You've got to add and multiply, not subtract and divide. And so, yeah, look, we absolutely believe that conservatives care about the climate. And again, if you want to solve for climate, you have to do it through innovation. You got to focus on solutions. And
Right.
for too long, conservatives have been stuck, and I'll say losing the war of ideas on whether or not the climate's changing and to what degree it's going to change and by when. And like, we can have that argument, and the truth is the science is never settled. Science by nature is never settled, right? But the truth is also that the
Yep.
climate is changing. Man and humans have an impact on the environment. Like, that should be a no-brainer. so,
Oh,
so
yeah.
the real question is, how do you reduce carbon emissions as fast as possible so that people and the planet can prosper? That's the question.
That's right. And I think it's pretty funny with COP. This was kind of cool the other day, is because I felt that with COP26, it was a stealth launch of natural gas being snuck in there, that it's now available for renewable funding as well. And then, oh, nuclear, that turned into a whole big thing in the EU, where they say they're going to do it. And all the folks over here said, oh, wait a minute, you can't do it. It's fossil. But you were there, right?
Sure.
Tell me about, I want to hear it, because I was over here doing a closet. Holy smokes, this is big news.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. So it's this was COP 26. So COP, as you know, stands for the Conference of Parties. It's the 26th meeting that
Right.
all of these countries, including the United States, have gotten together to talk about climate change and figure out how we're all going to solve it. Um, and the discussion is always about big government solutions, government commitments, ceremonial commitments by politicians that are not going to be around by the time they have to live up to those commitments. Not to be too skeptical, but or cynical, But so this is my first time there, and we went. So C3 Solutions went, and we thought, look, if we're going to go, I don't want to go and just observe. I want to go and do.
Right.
So we earlier this year we had published a report called "Free Economies Are Clean Economies." And this report took data from two reputable organizations that have been collecting data for a long time. The
Right.
Heritage Foundation, conservative organization, has published something called the Index of Economic Freedom for 27 years now, where
Okay.
they rank countries around the world based on their economic freedom. Yale University publishes something called the Environmental Performance Index, where
Okay.
they rank countries based on their environmental performance. So when you put economic freedom together with the environmental performance, what we wanted to find out was, well, what happens? Well, the good news is that economic freedom actually leads to a cleaner environment. So we published this report called Free Economies or Clean Economies, and we promoted that report at COP26. And intentionally so, because again, there's not much that you're going to hear there about entrepreneurship, capitalism, free markets, economic freedom, right? You're going to hear the kind of the headliners like Greta Thunberg and others will come out and shame the policy leaders and tell us why we should be, scared for the next 10 years before the world ends with
Right.
no solutions. And we're saying, no, 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 look, climate change is real. We're not here to debate that. We're here to
Right.
say that the real solutions are based in economic freedom. And let's talk about what that means. Economic freedom by definition is
Right.
having private property rights. It's having rule of law. It's less government, not more. It's lower taxes, not more. It's
Having the
efficient.
lowest cost of energy you possibly can that has got the least amount of impact on the environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So anyway, that's why we were there over at this COP26 meeting. We were thrilled to be there. We had Liam Fox, the conservative member from the UK Parliament, gave just a great keynote speech. If you get a chance to look it up,
Okay.
and we had other, all day event at the University of Strathclyde with CEOs of energy companies, renewable and not renewable, other think tanks around the world. We helped in the organization and signing of a document called, Market Environmental Principles that was signed by 150 organizations around the world.
Nice.
There is a movement of conservative organizations that understand that the private sector is what is needed to solve climate, and you just don't hear much.
Wow. No, you really don't. And the in the at least in the oil and gas space, it's been very frustrating over the last 20 years, is that it's old school. It's been around for 100, the 80 years beforehand. This is the way we did it. We've done it this way, and now we're going to keep done it this way. And they need to change. And those that are greenwashing and just saying that we're ESG, or they're giving a bad name for the ones that are actually doing the right things going down the energy path. So this is really cool. But I'm going to ask a really kind of an interesting question here, at least in my mind. Were you just going around handing out your white paper, or how did you get people interested in your white paper and the other 150? How did you get there? Because those are two big things that you were doing.
Yeah, so because it was our first time, part of this was kind of a learning process for us. We
Right.
had some great partners, and we did have. I created these little note cards with a QR code on them that
Right.
I handed out, and so basically I continue to hand them out, and when I meet with members of Congress, because it's just a simple way to hand somebody a
A
copy
full
of a
report.
report that
Nice.
shows real data on why free economies are clean economies. We plan on going there again this next year for COP27. We want to do something even bigger and better. I think the movement globally is growing, as I said.
Yep.
Um, and so, but, we got some media traction. John Hart, my co-founder, was interviewed on BBC News.
Nice.
We've been on Fox and Friends. But there's a lot more work to do. So we've got to keep grinding every day to just plow that field.
Well, what were some of the biggest things out of COP26 or COP26? Which way is the best way to say it? So I'm not socially inept, which I did go to OSU. So I am socially inept. And I saw on the bottom of your LinkedIn, you went to a little school called OU.
That's right. That's right. University of Oklahoma. So
So all these Oklahoma legislators and everything else, I'm like, I know them. So, and
we call it COP26. That's kind of what the insiders call it, I guess. But
okay.
whatever.
Okay.
I think key takeaways for me were, look, there's a recognition that the private sector is needed. I think, from what I was told, again, not having been there before, that there was probably a larger private sector presence this year than in the past. And
Right.
so, for try and paint a picture in people's minds, it's a big conference. And you imagine a big, exhibit hall, and you've got exhibits full of countries that are promoting what they're doing on energy and climate. And then you've got
Right.
another exhibit hall full of companies that are promoting what they're doing on energy and climate. And there was probably a fair number of companies there, more than in the past. And I think there was also a recognition, I think you tipped your hat on this earlier, that there was a recognition that natural gas is part of the solution.
Right.
And so, in the years past, it was probably all about just, keeping fossil fuels in the ground. Well,
Right.
obviously, natural gas is a fossil fuel, but we in the world, have started to hopefully recognize that we in the United States have reduced our carbon emissions faster than anybody based on natural gas fracking. And
Yep.
the United States actually opening up reserves that, before then we really couldn't get to economically. So, I think there's I think a growing recognition that the private sector's got to be involved, that you got to have capital markets involved,
Right.
that natural gas and other fossil fuels will be part of the transition,
Right.
and who wins out and when is going to be really up to the market.
So, do you think carbon capture is also part of your interest in talking? So, it's one thing to go ahead and cut down your emissions, but what about the energy tech in carbon capture?
Yeah, I think carbon capture is a big part of the solution. A lot of the talk is about renewables. Carbon capture, if you can do it economically, then you can take coal,
Right.
uh, not just coal, but natural gas and other fossil fuels, diesel. But primarily, I think the opportunity is gas and coal. And now you can generate electricity on, again, utility scale, national scale, the way we do it now.
Right.
If you can capture that carbon and utilize it for something, if you can make a product out of it and do it economically, I mean that is kind of the holy grail of fossil fuels. And
Yep.
we in the United States, we're the Saudi Arabia of coal. We have so much coal, and it's clean coal compared to a lot of the other resources of coal around the world.
You
Um,
bet.
so if we can actually produce electricity in a way that is truly clean. It's not just greenwashing, but it's
Right.
clean, doesn't emit particulates in the air. It takes the CO2
Yep.
and captures it and uses it for something. Like now you've got this just incredible resource, then we really are truly, energy independent. And I hesitate to use the word energy independent because as
Right.
you know, the energy markets are so intertwined and
Yep.
you're always dependent on one country or one industry or another for one thing or another. But, we're certainly moving closer towards independence or at least towards
Right.
security because of that.
Well, you just nailed Drew, a gigantic point, and that is the New England area is importing a lot of Russian oil. I mean, Russian oil and natural gas through LNG. They're dependent on Russia, Norway, and I believe it's Trinidad for their LNG. It's kind of crazy. When we're producing so much natural gas and LNG, we're importing Putin's energy. I mean, it just, and then when you go look at California, California is destroying the rainforest. They're importing 70% of the oil that's in coming up out of the rainforest by China companies is going to the ESG friendly California. Um, so the two coasts are actually the ESG capitals of the world for energy, and they're burning most of the non-ESG sources. Go figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good examples like that of where, kind of the environmental left, I'll say the extreme environmental left, and in many cases,
Right.
the states that are run by extreme Democratic politicians, um, say one thing and they put a policy in place to try and implement that, and then the consequence of that are actually the opposite. And I mean,
Yep.
I don't know, can I mention our news magazine on this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because if folks, listeners, so we've got a news magazine called c3newsmag.com. So just go to c3newsmag.com. And there's story after story on there. There's one on there today, I think, about, how, this very green town in Massachusetts actually doesn't want solar, as much as they want renewable energy, they don't want solar in their own backyard. And, Stu, as you point out, I mean, you've got scenarios where the politics and policies of the far left who say they want more renewable clean energy, are disallowing pipelines of clean natural
Right.
gas to get to them, right? And the geopolitical implications of this are serious. I mean, this is what
Right.
we're seeing today in Ukraine, right? I mean, you've got Germany a country that, had a fair amount of nuclear energy that was safe and clean,
Yep.
non-carbon emitting, decided to shut it all down. And then they started, needing not only coal for their electricity, but they needed Russian natural gas for their electricity.
Isn't
And
that
so
funny?
you've got what you hear in the news today about, Nord Stream 2 and whether or not Germany is going to continue that pipeline to go forward. I mean, that is scary stuff from a national security's perspective. If I was
Right.
a German citizen thinking that, well, wait a minute, yeah, I want to be good for the environment, absolutely, but I'm not going to do it at the cost of my national security and be tied to Russia.
Well, guess what? Um, when Putin announced, was it this morning or late last night, that he's sending peacekeeping troops into those two regions that are now independent. Right. You peacekeeping. No, those are troops. And this has been going on since 2014. And so by him taking Crimea and all of the pipeline to, here's what something I just found out the other day, Drew. All of the pipelines through Ukraine go to Germany, and then Germany takes that because it's a lower gas contract and sell it back to Ukraine right now. And then they're charging then they're buying it back from another corner and charging the German citizens even more money. So the government is taking advantage through policy of their people so they can charge them more for electricity. I just found that out. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean, that's horrible.
it is horrible. It's bad policy. It's just really bad policy, which again is why, we at C3 Solutions want to promote bottom up solutions to this.
You mentioned corporate involvement, it's got to be the industry coming together and innovative capitalist solutions, but you also have to deal with energy policy. You mentioned you said, hey, I've got all this experience. What are you doing up in DC?
Yeah, so we're C3 Solutions is a 501c3 organization, so we're a nonprofit, and we have kind of three primary functions. One is to educate policymakers.
Right.
So we work closely with Capitol Hill and try to educate them on how free economies are clean economies, and then not only the principles, but then what policies flow from that. Two, we have to communicate our ideas, and so we're out there selling ideas, and like any good think tank, and so we market that through opportunities to be on shows like this one, and
Yeah.
also opportunities to promote good ideas through our news magazine and others. Being at COP is going to be important, and then working in coalitions is the third. So
Okay.
we work closely with organizations. Really, we'll work with any organization, left, center, right, but our preference tends to be right because we come with such conservative pedigrees, and so we work
Right.
closely with the Heritage Foundation and other groups like CPI, and there's groups like CREST and ClearPath and the U.S. Chamber, and even in the middle you've got Bipartisan Policy Center, and then you've got a lot of corporations out there. But so and like I said, we try to play well in the sandbox, even with folks on the left when we can find agreement. There's groups like Third Way, which is a left of center organization.
Right.
We don't agree with them on much, but we agree with them on, I'd say, at least two things. One is that investing in energy innovation is really important. So
Right.
meaning, our taxpayer dollars, I'm perfectly fine and support, those going to energy innovation for the sake of U.S. American-made innovation.
Right.
So that's one. The other is nuclear energy. I mean, I think the left and Third Way, credit to them, the
Right.
left has come around on this issue of nuclear energy. It's kind of the extreme wacky left that hasn't. But they recognize it. Like if you're
Yeah.
trying to solve for climate, the cleanest non-carbon emitting form of energy is nuclear energy, and therefore you've got to embrace that. And
Right.
we in the United States have an opportunity to not only embrace it, but innovate here and export that innovation to our allies around the world.
Right.
And if we don't, then we're gonna actually let Russia and China be in that position, which is
Yep.
not a good strategy.
Now, Putin's going to be the energy czar of the world here very shortly. He's going to have more. I like that term. I wonder if I just created that one. Energy czar of the world, since czar is a Russian word. But how do people get involved with you? Because you're a movement. You're working with the politicians. You're working with the private sector. Drew, there's not many of you out there. How do people get involved with you besides signing up for the newsletter and offering either donations or investments? How do they get a hold of you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Those are the two best ways. I mean, we have a free newsletter that you can sign up for. We send it out once a week and once a month. We won't spam you. We won't sell your data. Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, at least not without asking you. I don't know. Maybe one day we will, but we won't ask. We'll ask you first. Um, so. And more importantly, I think we really rely on the support of our donors, and so I think when I guess I would ask people that are interested in joining us to take a look at our website at c3solutions.org. That's our kind of parent website, and then we've got the c3newsmag.com, and recognize that even if you don't consider yourself environmentalist or if you think this is a niche issue, it's not. I mean, you can't have a conversation anywhere around the world about energy or climate change or the environment or national security or supply chains or minerals.
Right.
I mean, we are an economic freedom organization. We are promoting free market capitalism for the future's sake of our kids and grandkids. And it just happens to be that energy, environment, and climate are top of mind. So we would love everyone's support, whether it's a dime or a dollar or more. We're just
Right.
grateful. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. And the energy report, I can't wait to even see that from COP26, because that sounds like a lot of information. If it was well received, I'm hoping we can get that in the hands of some folks as well, too.
Yeah, we'd love to. Please go. I mean, go to our website. You can download it. We've got other information there. Again, probably c3newsmag.com is the best place to start.
Okay.
You can find your way back to our mothership if you need to, but we'd be grateful for anybody's support in any way. I mean, be a partaker of our information, share our information. Just as you said, the movement that we're trying to create to recognize that free markets are really what's most needed in this issue.
Sounds great. And I'll tell you what, Drew, Mr. Drew Bond stopping by the Energy News Beat podcast today. I hope to have you on again next time you have some big important announcements. And we're going to put all your information in the show notes and we're going to get this rolling right on out. So, Drew, thank you for stopping by today.
Yes, Stu, thanks so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
And thank you.